Hey guys, my name is Cassie, and we are going to be reflecting on some of the current events and information that we are getting from various news articles and things. And we just kind of want to discuss our own opinions. And with me is going to be Crystal.
Hello, everyone.
So basically, we're just here to kind of look at things from our perspective. And then, of course, we want to hear from you as well in the comments. As well as if you guys want to leave any sort of feedback as to things that you'd like us to discuss or talk about.
And I really want to say I would like this to be a community wide thing. As people in general, we are born to socialize, and whether your opinions are the same as ours or different than ours is so important because it lets us know what you guys want to hear and what we want to look at next. Oh my gosh, this game is going so horribly. Gonna start that one over. No. But yeah, we're just kind of here trying to give out our opinions and see what everyone else thinks too. Um, and in general, we would really like to hear from everyone.
Yep, and one thing about media is like they do those little comment things on the bottom of the news pages, but it really doesn't give you a chance to see so much of the differences because everyone just kind of favorites the good ones and everyone else is kind of left in the background. So it's nice to be able to hear and see everybody.
Absolutely. And I will say, I will personally go through all the comments, and I know Cassie's on board with me, just to make sure everyone's heard. Our opinions all matter, no matter who you are, your opinion matters. And just make sure that it's kind of, I hate to say the word educated, because we want to make sure that we're putting opinions out there that actually can help and help us in the way that we're trying to communicate with everyone else.
Agreed. But a little bit of background on me. I am 22 years old. I currently live in Maryland. I work currently at a call center doing technical support. So a lot of the discussions and things are also things that sometimes I hear from customers. Um, and that's just kind of like a general blurb about who I am and kind of a little bit about my background, so you might understand a little bit where I'm coming from.
And a little bit about me is I am 24. I have a husband and two children. I'm from Central Illinois, or more people call it Southern Illinois. I know, don't judge me for that. Um, I also work at the same call center that Cassie does. We work in kind of the same program for our employers, and um, the topics that we come up with will not have necessarily to do with our customers' opinions or situations themselves, but more what are brought up to us because while we're taking these calls, we do communicate with our customers and we want to hear what they think as well and we want to share what they think. So definitely we want to make sure that all opinions are getting out there within a reasonable manner.
Definitely, and it gives us some topics sometimes just to kind of fill dead air as far as I remember one time I was discussing something with a customer during a bit of a time period where we were just kind of waiting on the systems, and it was just kind of fun to be able to talk with him. And he remembered the moon landing, and I was sitting there discussing the recent Mars rover that we had put down. So it's just kind of neat. Sometimes you get to see it from different angles and different perspectives, and it's fun to be able to share in that. Um, me being kind of young, I'm always curious to hear, kind of someone that actually saw, the history and the background to it, because I didn't see the moon landing. Personally, I wasn't sitting there in front of the TV. I wasn't even born yet. So to hear someone that could give the feelings and the description of what that meant to them was awesome. That's still kind of what we want to do, is just kind of get your own feelings and opinions and why it's important to you or why it causes your feelings to happen. So
And our first topic today, it looks like we've chosen Montgomery. Let's see, what state was this?
Maryland, actually.
Montgomery, Maryland has decided to have their school calendar say something different for the holidays rather than have Christmas or Thanksgiving holidays named, they're looking to name them differently. Cassie, did you read what exactly they're wanting to name the different holidays now?
Yeah, rather than doing like Christmas break, they're going to be doing winter break. Rather than doing Easter holiday or Easter weekend, they'll be doing, spring break. And the reason that this came about was actually because the Muslim community in that area got kind of upset with the fact that their kids didn't have their holidays, their religious holidays listed on that calendar. Of course, any absence is excused if it's a religious reason. So it wasn't the absences really; it was just the fact that it wasn't recognized throughout the entire school. Um, I don't know. It jostled me a little bit. I mean, religious freedom is always something that's so widely expressed in America. We don't have like one standardized religion, but it's kind of interesting. Sometimes I think that people get more upset about the fact that we don't have a single religion and one, religion for the way that we run our schools and things, rather than the fact that we are a free nation that has the ability to let everyone practice freely.
Well,
It's kind of weird.
my opinion on it, in all honesty, is that it's silly how much focus that we put on religion. Is religion important? Absolutely. Everybody can have religion, and some people need religion to pass through the day. I mean, I can speak personally that at one point in my life, I needed religion to get through it because of a situation that happened in my life. But the fact that so many people are trying to force that religion on other people, it kind of just bothers me, the fact that we shouldn't have to be bothered one way or another about religion. If someone wants to say Merry Christmas, then go ahead, say Merry Christmas. If somebody wants to say Happy Holidays, more power to them. But we shouldn't put so much focus on the fact that we're naming something certain, holiday or certain
Right.
religion.
Definitely, especially around this time of the year, I get the mixed group of people. Especially on my calls. It's like towards the end, especially right up around the Christmas time and New Year's and everything. I will say Happy Holidays towards the closing. I get so many people that get all kinds of affronted because I'm not specifying a holiday, and then I get people that are just like, "Oh, well, Happy Holidays to you too." It's like they're not assuming that I'm necessarily trying to take sides. It's not like I'm trying to say, "Oh, well, this is how I have to say it." It's just a matter of I don't want to necessarily assume that you celebrate, everything that's coming around. I don't necessarily assume that I, celebrate every holiday that lands in the period between November and December. I just want to say, have a good time with what you are doing. There's something there. In a lot of cases, there's a holiday in that span for everybody. It's a cheerful time. It's a happy time. I almost feel like people are getting so up in arms about it. It's like it's no longer cheerful. I almost don't want to say happy holidays because it's going to open up a can of worms with some people. It's easier to just say, "Oh, well, have a good day."
Right, and then you have the problem of nowadays holidays are so commercialized that they don't actually mean what they're supposed to mean. I mean, even back in medieval times, we would have holidays because people at this time, when it gets really cold and really frustrating, we needed a holiday to keep us going. I mean, nothing makes a human being go forward like celebration with family. And for some
Yeah.
reason, our psychological well-being counts on things like this, but we've commercialized so much of it now that it's just stress, and it's so frustrating to everyone that we don't want to do it anymore.
Very much so. I remember, as a little kid, my great grandparents owned a bowling alley, and one of the perks of that is that every year, either Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, it would be completely closed off to the public and it would be open for family, which is really fun for us, especially as kids. We would have the chance to bowl. We'd be able to use the snack machines and snack bar, and of course be with family and exchange gifts and things. And it was really fun, but I think the over commercialization and just the general sense of, well, I have to go do this and I have to get a gift for, and I have to, it's become about what you feel like you have to do to either be the role that you are in the family, or to, fit in amongst the holiday people. It's like, just because I don't go completely nuts around Christmas and decorate every inch of my house doesn't mean it doesn't have a personal meaning for me. I'm just not quite as, oh my gosh, I have to completely get new drapes and new bedding and new clothes, and just completely go all out. I prefer a much more simple approach.
Right. And even with kids nowadays, I mean, as I said, I have two kids, and with my income being so low right now, I mean, um, because of me being out from maternity leave recently, I barely have enough money to be able to pay my house payment this month. And yet I'm sitting over here stressing that I won't have enough money to buy my kids presents because of the fact that, as we grow up, we learn that you have to get presents on Christmas. You have to be able to, um, you know, be get gifts and different things like that. It's no longer about being family or in the Christian aspect. It's not about celebrating your religion. It, it's
Yeah.
it's simply about commercializing it, and nobody actually takes the time to really enjoy family or enjoy each other anymore. Um, and you can say this even about Thanksgiving, and Cassie, you and I can probably relate to this, that so many people are having to work on holidays now that
Oh
it's
yeah.
kind of lost its meaning too.
Especially on Thanksgiving, because so many stores are like, well, let's kick off Black Friday early. It. I don't mind Black Friday in the sense of, let's really start to kick off the Christmas spirit, and let's really start to play the Christmas carols and put up the Christmas decorations. But the Christmas decorations are already out. I mean, I'm sure where you live, you've already seen, Santa's sleigh and the Christmassy garlands and everything everywhere. It's like, it's already done. I mean, people didn't used to put up the tree until like Christmas Eve. Nowadays, there's whole houses already decorated, and those are going to be up until December 25th, or even until New Year.
My
It's like,
neighbors have done that, and it's driving me nuts already.
right. I I'm all for let's celebrate and let's decorate and let's be joyful and cheery. I'm not for let's make it so much about what you are expected to buy or what you're expected to be able to bring to the table. I want it to be about what what type of feelings does it invoke? I mean, even if I didn't get my personal wish gift item, although there were not very many Christmases I didn't, either through church donations or family donations, etc. I usually did end up getting that one thing that I asked for. Um, I think the last Christmas that I really spent at home, the one thing I'd asked for actually was the entire complete collection of Sherlock Holmes. And it was not an extreme gift by any stretch of the imagination, but it was just something that I personally wanted. I loved the series, and I wanted my own hard copies. So that was it for me. That's all I really needed. I didn't need some massive, 20-course meal. I didn't need to be, you know, standing in front of my house looking at, 1,000 streams of lights. I didn't need anything that was that great. It was nice to be able to sit there with my family, watch my siblings open their gifts and get excited, and get something that I felt would be useful and long-lastingly used for me. That to me was enough. I didn't need a lot of the commercialization and all the everything that else that people think that they should have with Christmas. But you're right. We are raised in a society where kids get these gifts, and they are, as turnaround, they're expected to do the same for their kids. It's like no one really teaches you, well, here's how to make it work with your income being what it is. Minimum wage doesn't exactly afford the holidays any sort of special occasion,
And
but we're commercialized.
then you also have to look at these kids like last year I saw so many different like posts on Facebook and different things like that, social media saying, "Oh, my parents got me the iPhone 5. I can't believe they would do this to me. Like it's the most horrible thing in the world." I'm sitting over here with no cell phone ever, and I'm just like, why can't you just appreciate that your parents halfway cared about you and got you something? There are
Very
kids
much
out
so.
there that get nothing for Christmas and they have to deal with it. Why are these spoiled rotten kids getting iPhone 5s or iPhone 6s and being prudent or what's the word? Being mean about it, I guess. I can't think of the right word there. But they're being spoiled over it and saying, well, this gift isn't good enough because it doesn't match what I wanted specifically.
Exactly. I mean, I'm sure everybody remembers back in the Harry Potter series. There's this one scene where Dudley is having his birthday and he starts counting his gifts. And because he did not get the right number of gifts, he sits there and almost has this epic fit. Harry never gets a darn thing. He never even gets his birthday really recognized. I
And
mean, you
then
get to see him spending his birthday in a shack.
and then you also have to see in the same sense of that that the kids that read those books will turn around and say, "Oh, that's horrible that he would be treating this character that way, or that this character wasn't happy with the number of gifts he got," and then they turn around and do the exact same thing. And our society doesn't realize how much it's actually hurting our kids to do
Right.
this.
And it's like I don't feel like any 14-year-old on this entire planet requires the level of smartphone that they're getting. I've seen 8-year-olds walk around with iPads. I don't understand why. I mean, I grew up perfectly happy and didn't even have a cell phone until I was 18, and the only reason I had one then is so I could get in touch with my mom when we moved apart. It's like I don't see the pressing need to constantly get the latest and greatest in technology. Although I do see a need that if there's something that you're wanting that is within reason, like okay, I want maybe not the entire cell phone, but there's this one particular app that costs money, but it would give me connection to this, or if there's one particular thing that you want to do with your family. I remember, my little sister would spend her Christmas cash by taking us all out to dinner because that's what she liked to do. She liked to go out and eat with us all. She liked us all to be sitting down at a table because it never happened when we were at home. But it gave us a chance to all just sit down and have dinner and discuss things. It's like sometimes I think that we've become so focused on the price tag of the gift that we're so lost in, well, do you really need that? Is it really going to fulfill you?
Right. And I will have to say, in retrospect as well, that I give my 3-year-old my tablets. I got a Kindle for one Valentine's Day gift, and then I got a Nook for a different one because my Nook or my Kindle was overtaken by the kids. But you know, also I have to say that if say the battery goes dead in one of the tablets, he doesn't get to throw a fit about it that he can't use it anymore. He has to put it down and go do something else. So you can give your kids these devices and you can give them the ability to use technology because I urge them to be able to use technology and
Oh
not
yeah,
be like some of the people that don't know a keyboard from a mouse.
oh yeah.
But
In this day and age, you kind of have to. There's just no way around it.
and that's true, but you also have to make sure there's limitations. Every child needs limitations, and we have to recognize that in our Christmas giving as well, that kids should not get $1,000 worth of stuff for Christmas. I mean, they could do with one toy or two toys and be perfectly happy. And as a mother myself, I can also say that I want to be able to give my kids $1,000 worth of stuff, but they don't need it. It's bad for them.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that one of my family members said once was more instead of spending like $1,000 in one lump sum to get them, to get like the most amazing spread of gifts ever during Christmas, I would rather get, little gifts throughout the year. I would rather, okay, we're in the middle of the store. I see, a video game that I really, really want. It's not Christmas time, but because I didn't have $1,000 in gifts around Christmas, we do have a little extra, and I'm able to get that. I would rather those little things throughout the year, or even a reward system where, okay, I've earned an allowance, or I've done, X number of chores, or some sort of a reward system that teaches me the value of what I'm getting. To get everything in one lump sum, it's like you're handing your child a sense of entitlement. And I'm sorry, I probably am just as guilty of this because I kind of was spoiled. I mean, my grandma really did spend a lot of money on my gifts throughout the years when I was little. Growing up, though, as I hit that teenager stage and when she was no longer around, I have come back and I've realized the value of what I'm holding. It's not just a computer that I can toss around. I have to take care of it. I have to see to my own finances, make sure I can pay for food, pay for rent. If after the fact I have enough to get something special for me, great. If not, I just have to deal.
Right, and I agree with you throughout the year. What we're actually doing this year is I'm going to buy my sons a couple of gifts, nothing too big, especially the baby. He won't even remember any of it. And then around tax time, when we get our taxes back, if we get anything back, then I'm going to take that money and I'm going to save it to get them things throughout the year. Especially with my 3-year-old that's in school right now, he's having a really hard time in school because he won't behave himself. Well, if he has a good day, then he can get a cookie or something like that, something that he normally wouldn't get if he were acting poorly. So I really think that saving money back and spreading it out through a year when they are really good is better than spending it all at once, whether they're good or bad. I mean, Christmas, we used to, when I grew up, we were told if you're not good throughout the year, then you get coal in your stockings. And I swear, I probably got coal in my stocking one year. I mean, my parents were
Yeah.
really heavy on you've got to behave yourself or you get nothing at all.
But I think it's a little easier to think about being good. It, People do it, right around Christmas time, especially right after Halloween. Oh, well, if you do that, Santa's not gonna bring you any gifts. It's kind of like a tactic of just around that time of year. It's not like, in February you're gonna say that to your child. I mean, most people don't think about it. Once Christmas is over, you don't even think about it again until it starts to approach. And it's like, rather than doing it that way, it makes a little bit more sense to make it a daily thing for them and a daily, strive to be better, either through behavior or really pushing for good grades or making sure that they're helping and sharing whatever the goal of the time is, to get them to that level where they're healthy, happy, and successful adults.
And,
So
and right there, I think, is our problem in general with society. That we, as parents, don't think about what they're going to be as adults. We think of what they are now. And, there are plenty of examples of kids out there that have gotten in a lot of trouble, and their parents come back and say, well, they were good kids. Well, no, they weren't because you never really paid attention to whether they were good or bad. And I
yeah.
really think that that's a problem right now, and I'm guilty of this. I will plain out say I'm guilty because if my kid does something bad, yeah, I'll sit down and tell him, look, you can't do this right then and there, and then I forget about it later on. And my
Yeah.
husband gets on to me about that all the time. Like, one of our punishments is taking the Nook and the Kindle away from him if he's bad, and then by dinner time I'll have forgotten that he's in trouble and I offer it to him. Well, that's not fair to him for me to say, well, you're grounded from them, and then later on say, oh, here you go. It's not fair.
No, and they don't. And unfortunately, I see this all too often. I see where a parent will say you're grounded from X, and then either the kid is able to get around it, sneak around the punishment, especially these days. I mean, it's so easy to get your hands on a computer. Grounding them from a computer is almost impossible. They can get to one at school, they can get to one by a friend's house, etc., etc. It's like it's really kind of hard to make a discipline actually work. And unfortunately, it is, as a parent, it's kind of like the timing of it. You know, to ground a kid by making them stay home and not use a computer and not use any electronics, and then they're, moping around bored, they need something to do, they need someone to entertain them, and it's like, it's almost kind of more of a punishment for them. I know my sister did it to my mom and me all the time. She would get grounded from something, and then she would of course be bugging me for me to entertain her, and I'd be like, no. I'm still doing my own thing because I didn't get in trouble.
Well, and that's another thing is kids don't know how to entertain themselves anymore. If the
Oh no.
parent's busy, they bug them until, they get what they want. We can't do that. If you're busy, you've got to say, "Okay, go play by yourself." We've got to say, "Go play outside." If as long as everything's safe and you know it is, go tell them to do something. Don't cater
Yeah.
to a child's every want and need because it's going to make them bad in the end. It's going to do them more harm than it is good. And then you have
Yeah.
all these studies that say, "Oh, punishment's not good," or that you shouldn't put your kids in timeout, you shouldn't ground them from things. Well, okay, what am I supposed to do? Well, you're supposed to sit down and talk with them. Have you ever tried to sit down and talk to a 3-year-old before?
Yeah, my brother and I were 11 years apart. I actually do remember a little bit about that.
I
It's
mean,
impossible. Their attention span is just too low. They
it's
can
not.
understand short things, short little phases, but they're gonna look at something else.
It's not
Especially my brother.
necessarily that it's impossible, but it's ineffective. A child that is put in the corner for 5 minutes and told to stay there because they're in trouble, well, they're going to do a lot better than a child that is just talked to. And every time I see one of those silly articles, I can't believe that people are actually listening to them because if you're a parent, you realize off the bat what your child does and does not respond to. And I have never seen a child that is small like that respond to anything other than a timeout or a punishment.
Yeah, and I mean, when I was little, I mean, there were about two, three levels of punishment. I mean, there were the kind of things that don't do that again. Here's a timeout. Here's a quick, short term kind of a punishment that would just make me rethink it. Then there were things that were a little bit more severe, um, especially when I got older. My parents particularly were fond of the "you're going to write 100 times and then whatever it was I was not supposed to do." Kind of similar to the Harry Potter punishment that he had to go through. Only my pen fortunately did not create a mark on my hand. But that one was particularly good for like a long term. You're going to come back from school and write this down 50 times. For the next 2 days. That one was an annoyance more than anything. It wasn't really something that I felt was like going to drastically change me, but because it was like a long term, you're going to have to sit here for this long, and your hand is going to hurt after you're done. It kind of made me a little bit more aware. But especially when I was little, Theo was very, very fond of spanking. I mean, even as far as going up with a belt. And he was never, like, outright beating me with it, but all he had to do was kind of adjust his belt buckle, and we knew not to do whatever the heck we were doing. That was just about all it took. And it was very rarely doled out, but when it was a pain. And it really made us stop and think. And I don't necessarily agree with the belt. Spanking, however, is one of those hotly debated topics constantly.
And, I understand there's a fine line between abuse and punishment.
Oh yeah.
Um, and there are quite a few people that reach those bounds, and I'd rather not bring up those topics, but you've really got to understand as a parent the difference between the two. And what you really got to do is start from the small things.
Yeah.
If they don't respond to that, such as a small pat on the butt, then you probably need to go to something a little bit different. If they don't respond to a 5 minute timeout, well, then they probably need a 10 minute, so on and so forth. Um, the time when it's over the top is the time when you're doing it for long periods of time. It's hours at a time, or the times when you're when the times when you're actually leaving marks on the child. That's not what you
Yeah.
should be doing. You're not trying to harm them, you're trying to teach them.
Yeah.
And and again, it's the parent that needs to be doing this. This should not be a teacher's job. This should not be a job for a grandparent or a family member. It is your position as the parent to do this. And what kind of makes me sick is the people that just have kids and then don't care about them and make another family member take care of them. Well, no, you decided to have this child, and nowadays it is a decision. It is not you're being forced to have this child. It is a decision. And it's one of those things that if you make the decision to have a child in your life, then you need to be prepared fully to have and take care of this child. And another thing that kind of bothers me is people think that once a child turns 18, that it's you no longer have to take care of them. That's wrong. You have
No.
to take care of this child the rest of your life.
Yeah. You should be actively involved, even if you weren't taking on so much of a authority figure role when they're 18, being there to answer the tough questions. Because I'm sorry, school does not teach us how to file our taxes. School does not teach us how to, look at, finance records and things like that. Not unless you're taking a class driven towards that. So as a parent, to come in and say, you know what, I know this is confusing, this is hard. Let me at least either be a, shoulder for you to cry on when things don't go the way you want, or let me be a source of guidance and a source of, here, let me see how I can help you. Let me see how I can, get you training or get you active and involved in what you want to be in. Not necessarily as a, let me just lend you all the money you think you want, but let me be able to get you to the next level to where you are fully independent and a full functioning adult. I have a friend who works retail, and she she was a not a manager quite, but she was pretty high up there. She was very involved in the store's activities, and their district manager actually hired somebody because the mom called him. And then the mom brought said daughter to work and, was hung basically sitting over her, while she was working and constantly being around, just as if the daughter could not function. And I'm like, there's no reason for that. The daughter had no mental illnesses, no diseases, nothing. She was perfectly healthy, should have been able to function as an adult. But her mom is the one getting her a job, and the mom is the one paying for an education that we're estimating at about $20,000 a year just because of the school she's going to. It's like that kind of parenting is going to make that child really, really hurt when you're not around anymore. Parents have to realize you're not immortal. You are eventually going to leave this earth. You want to make sure that you have your child set up for moving on and being able to go on and be able to figure out their life and in a way that is healthy and successful. So to handhold them to their first job is not the way to do that. Although I agree, you need to kind of, encourage them and help them with an application, walking them into the door the first day. Not professional. It looks wrong. It just doesn't look right.
I've actually had a supervisor from one of my employers tell me that they did an interview one time where when they called for it was an over the phone interview, and when they called, they asked for the recipient and got the mother instead. And the mother straight up said, "Oh no, he's not coming to the phone. I'm going to do the interview for him." And when the supervisor said, "Well, I can't do that because I need to speak to the person that we're actually going to employ," the mother said, "Oh no, I did all of his paperwork and I did all of the application and everything. I promise everything's true and I'm going to tell you everything the truth." And I'm just the supervisor in question was telling me about this, and she said I was just, flabbergasted. I didn't know what to say to this woman because she honestly thought
Yeah.
that we were going to be able to hire her son when she did his interview.
Yeah, no, that they need to be able to they need to be able to make themselves presentable enough to get a job. They need to be able to make themselves motivated to do things that they need to do, like go shopping and do laundry and get to their college classes on time. They need to be self-sufficient. I don't agree that they just need to be, thrust out the door at the age of 18, but they need to be gradually walked through the process of becoming a stable adult that's functioning in society. I mean, I can't even begin to list the number of adults I know that are still living at home in their 40s and 50s. I mean, 40s and 50s, when the parents are completely able to live on their own, they don't need the child there for like a medical support situation. They're just there because they're living off their parents. It's like that's not cool. that that's hurting both parties. The child's not going to be able to figure life out if something happens to the parent, and the parents, you know, are basically allowing their child to sponge off them for forever. It looks like it's like no.
And again, as a mother, like you said, you don't have to push your child out at age 18. The whole point is, and this is what I plan on doing. Now what I do is different, but what I plan on doing is specifically telling my children, when you get out of high school, you have two options. Either one, go get a job, or two, go to college. And whichever one you choose, I will support you in whatever you need. However, you have to be able to fully sustain yourself and support yourself within a period of time. And I really think that, being a parent that says, okay, I'll be there to support you, but you have to be able to do it to yourself as well. That's telling your kid that, oh, yeah, I'm still here for you, but I want you to be able to do things on your own.
Yeah, I mean, a child should be able to walk into a store, ask for an application. If the manager's on site, it's sometimes a good idea to say, hi, my name is, and I'm looking for a job. It's okay to be able to need a little assistance filling out an application because I needed some help. I didn't quite know what to put down to get hired. I didn't know, the little quirks and things that they look for on an application. I didn't know all of that when I was first applying. It was kind of hit or miss with me. And so, I did have someone that was very patient that sat down and said, okay, here's what you really want to focus on. And then here's some other things that you can add just to kind of make yourself stand out. And it was like the time and the patience that they took. It wasn't my mom, but the time and the patience that they took to help me with that actually did end up landing me my first job. And it was like I had to learn how to function in a work environment. Work environment is not a school environment. My first job, however, I mean, we had so many high schoolers on duty that it almost was a high school environment, but it's not like school. You don't just, pass notes to your friends and text behind your math book and just aim for good grades. You really have to strive at every moment to do what you need to do. And it's not like you get, weekends and off, and you don't get these like long week off spells in the winter and spring. You're working your butt off year round the clock, as hard as you need to in order to make your ends meet and to advance your career in a lot of cases. It's not just, you go to school for 9 months, you have a 3-month vacation, and then all these extra days off in between. It doesn't work like that.
Right. And then we also have to, um, or I apologize. I was very lucky in high school to have a co-op program where we went to school for half a day and then you went to work for half a day. And if you didn't have a job at the time you started the program, then they helped you find a job. And one of the things that they did completely is they taught you how to do a resume, and they taught you how to dress appropriately to go to pick up an application even. I mean, even how you look when you pick up the application and are filling it out is very important. And we can even look at, you know, when even not staying at the place of employment to do the application, but, you know, go home, fill it out, and then bring it back within a day. Things like
Yeah.
that can change so much that people don't recognize that. So I was very fortunate for that co op program that taught me so much.
Yeah.
And you said, you know, your school didn't teach you how to do taxes or apply for a home loan or anything like that. Well, most schools don't. Some schools
Right.
do, and if you go to that school, fantastic. However, you've got to know these things to be able to go into the future. And
Yeah.
even knowing how to apply for an apartment is so important because that's something that you are going to need. Even if you go straight out of the gate from your parents' house and start owning a house, your children might need to one day buy an apartment or rent an apartment. And honestly, I think it's healthy for everyone to live in an apartment at one point in time. Even if you are filthy rich, live in one of those small, out of date apartments just for one
Yeah.
day to recognize what people go through on a daily basis sometimes.
Yeah. And it kind of also makes you appreciate the fact that, you know, as important as it is to get a good education in high school is not the end all be all of everything you're going to have to learn in life. You shouldn't just stop at high school, even if you don't decide to pursue a college degree necessarily. You should constantly be seeking to make sure that you are able to do something should the situation arise, especially, like you said, applying for a college application, applying for an apartment, getting into, cars and, insurance for that car and finding the right, balance of making sure that you're able to afford the payments on the car, the payments of the gas, the payments on the insurance, and everything else that goes with a car. It's not just the payments you make every month to own said car. It's also everything else that goes with it. And there's a lot that schools they don't really hit on. Although personally, I find that the stuff that I've learned since leaving school has been a little bit more helpful to me in real life than some of the stuff that I learned in school.
Do you
Um,
ever feel like you actually learned anything in school nowadays?
there are some things, there are some topics, like especially history. I've actually recently gone back and there's an academy online called Khan Academy, and they actually have this whole history course. And I've been watching it just out of pure interest. I love history. I just love English. I enjoy learning about those topics. I enjoy those things. But no, when it comes to things like the hypotenuse of a triangle and sin, tan, and costan, I'm just like, no, that none of that stuff has helped me since I got out. I forget most of it. I forget most of everything I learned in 4 years of Spanish. I could say hello and how are you, and that's about it.
Yeah.
It's like I feel like that time could have been spent elsewhere, although I do give credit to the people that, you know, I, for those that do want to pursue a degree in engineering, they probably know these mathematical terms that escape me by heart now. They needed that. But for me, it's like, I don't need that right now. I mean, teach me what I need to know. Teach me, how to find a job. Teach me how to keep said job. Teach me, about applying for an apartment, about, getting a car, things like that that weren't covered. I
And
took a finance class and none of that stuff they covered, okay, here's the expected cost of living and here's how much the percentage goes into the housing on average and here's the average for cars. They taught averages. They taught here's the expected range. They taught things like that, but they didn't teach me how to do it for me.
right. And honestly, when I hear about people such as yourself that went to these schools that didn't really teach those things, I kind of feel entitled a little bit because I actually did have a school that taught me all of those things. They taught me how to balance a checkbook. They taught me how to find and keep a job. They taught me all these different things that, from what I hear, most schools aren't teaching. And in all honesty, I went to school in Illinois. We are rated one of the worst schooling systems in the country. How in the world are we still learning more than the majority of the United States? And then I realized, well, when they look at those statistics for best and worst, they're looking at like math and science programs. They're looking at the different things that you're taught in each class. They're not
Yeah.
looking at the things that you really need to know.
No, they're not testing you on your ability to fill out an application and get hired. They're testing you on your ability to memorize information and take a test. And I'm sorry, that's exactly what it breaks down to. They're judging performances in schools based on average grade point average, GP, not GPA, but the average graduation rate. They're looking at the test scores in various subjects. They're looking at the ACT, SAT, whatever your proficiency rating score is. Ohio, which is where I graduated, had the massive Ohio graduation tests, which when you're a senior and a junior in high school, you basically have a whole week where you only take maybe 15 minutes of your classes because they literally shorten the whole school day, so that way the sophomores and the freshmen can come take either practice OGTs or the full thing. It's like you're almost doing them a disservice to the upperclassmen who've already taken it and already passed. It's like test scores are great and all, but it really is not the only judge of a person's success. It's like I had college classmates who didn't perform the greatest on tests, but they're wonderfully successful now because they were able to do things, like balance a checkbook and, look at car payments and basically set themselves up for success. That didn't include a history test or an English test.
Right, and it's so hard to see kids not be able to do that. And then you get the kids that, like, I'll give you one good example. When I was in middle school, I learned how to do origami because I knew that all I needed for origami was a sheet of paper. And it could be the smallest sheet of paper or it could be the biggest. And I was at the doctor's office yesterday, and there was this little girl, and the receptionist looked at her and said, "Are you bored?" Because she was just in the waiting room waiting for her mom to get done with her appointment. The little girl says yes. She had an entire notebook next to her. And I'm just like, well, as a kid, you need to be able to learn to entertain yourself. You need to be able to learn the different things that adulthood requires. And
Yeah.
entertaining yourself and actually knowing what to do with yourself when you have nothing else around you, that is important.
Yeah,
So
no.
why
I totally agree.
why are we not teaching our kids this?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the most interesting examples is I grew up in a college town, okay? Yes, there was Alliance as a city, but most of our entertainments, most of our even just our workforce was college based because we had a university in the town. And it took up a very big chunk of the town, I might add. But a lot of the high school students would find their entertainment with said college buddies. And Mount Union is still known as one of the biggest drug and alcohol busts in the entire country because of the fact that there were so many high schoolers present at a party where there was underage drinking, drug usage, all sorts of crap going on. And someone eventually did report it to the cops, but it was just a mess. And it's like, being able to entertain yourself goes a little bit beyond just, when you're bored, you have something to do. But being able to say, drinking right now might entertain me for a little while, but then I'm going to wake up with a hangover and I still have to go to work in the morning. It's being able to determine, okay, what is actually a good, even if it's a waste of time in the sense that it's just a game or it's just a Facebook game or something that's, not necessarily like a productive item, but something to do that wouldn't involve potentially reckless behavior. Find something to do with your time that doesn't always involve getting a high off of, doing something that's bad or wrong or something against what your parents are saying to do.
And that's, I think, another thing that we have problems with in our society here is that I can't name a college off of hand that celebrates their education standards. Like when I was applying for college a long time ago, um, I was looking for a college that pretty much just had the area of focus that I was into at the time. And one of the problems I found is that when I researched the college, a lot of people said it was a party college, and you can find so few that are not considered party colleges.
Yeah, and it's like I did for a little while. I did just try to attend a school. It wasn't the one that I grew up around, but I did try to attend a university. And I found myself completely floored by how much of the day was just literally spent doing pretty much nothing. I mean, I expected a little bit more of a rigorous course load, a little bit more of a, I'm busy, I have to get this paper done, or I'm busy, I have to get this project done. And I grant you, I wasn't there for an extremely long time, but I figured by October things would pick up and actually give me a chance to, see an actual course load, a college course load. Um, I ended up dropping out more out of financial reasons than anything else, but I was extremely amazed at how much of the days in college were just spent in trivial pursuits that didn't really involve knowledge. And how many people were just like, oh, let's go to the bar, or let's go here, let's go do something that's silly, crazy. There's of course all the rumors that fly around about the pranks and the traditions and things like that, and it's just like, okay. So if I deduct all of that activity, what do I have left? A couple hours a day in a classroom and maybe 1 or 2 hours behind my desk actually working. I mean, is that it?
Right. And we you and I, Cassie, are from the same generation, and we both have to understand that our generation is probably going to be the worst known to our country right now.
Oh
And
yeah.
the sad thing is that our generation doesn't understand that we have nothing but the power over the future of everything. We can sit here and complain all we want about the fact that we don't like what's going on, but that doesn't make it any better. And we all have to understand that, it we don't want our world to be this way. I mean, you see all the teenagers and all the people that are complaining online about the way our government is run, and yet no one's going to stand up and do anything about it because we one were never taught how to do anything, and then two, we're afraid because we have comfort nowadays.
Yeah. I think we've gotten so comfortable with the way that things are, especially here. I think that it's been so long since we were faced with, the reality that, there is not a guarantee that just because you hold a college degree does not mean that you're going to be able to walk in and grab a job. And that's what, unfortunately, a lot of my, classmates and a lot of our generation are realizing. It's like they went out and they've got these college degrees now. I graduated in 2010. They're graduating. They just graduated, and now they have to figure out how to get a job and then to pay back all those loans. For the 4-year degrees, this is the wake up call, unfortunately, and it's like I hear so many of them that have lately, talked to me and IM'd me and things, and I'm just like, I'm almost kind of glad I didn't, because I didn't really have a clear target of what I was going for in school, and to avoid spending so much money on a degree that may or may not have actually worked for me, and now instead I have at least a stable job for a year that is provided for me. I'm able to, provide for a family. I'm able to, make a budget work, stretchy as it is. I make it work, and it's like I feel like I've learned a lot more about how to live and how to make a success of myself as an adult than some of my college counterparts. And I always intended to go to college. I mean, that was my mom's thing, is let's go to college, let's get you into some really nice Ivy League school. And it didn't work, but I also think she is a bit proud of the fact that I have made something of myself. I just haven't sat down in her basement playing video games all my life. I've actually gone out, got a job. I don't necessarily own my own home, but I have an apartment that I help keep the rent for. It's like I'm married. I have a family, and I feel fulfilled.
Right,
And I think that's one of the biggest things is I actually feel fulfilled.
right. Well, I tell you what, Cassie, that's all the time we have today. That was a lot of really good information. And I want to say to the viewers, put your opinions out there. We touch on a lot of maybe touchy subjects, and we all have to realize these are subjects that we can't ignore anymore. These are all subjects that eventually, as we come to time and as it comes to pass, we're going to have to confront these things. So please put your comments out there. If you want to join us on one of these, videos, let us know so that we can kind of have other opinions there. We have no one or excuse me, we have no problem with having people join us as long as you're willing to be on our schedule. But come out there, bring your opinions, let us know what you think because we are so excited to be able to do this and we are so excited to join with people. And even if your opinions are different than ours, come join us so that we can discuss it, debate, have intelligent conversations. There are so many times when there are people just yelling back and forth each other. That's not what we're here to do. We are here to get opinions out there. We are here to help, and we need to all work together in order to do that. And I know that sounds really, let's all get together type thing. That's not what this is either. This is let's stand down and realize there are problems that we need to face.
Yep, definitely. And it's always good to hear another point of view, especially a point of view that might be from someone, that's seen other things, seen other, sides of the story, seen other sides of the coin. And it's always nice to hear, how does this topic or how do the topics that we discussed or how do other topics affect, how you have grown up, the values that you hold, and the beliefs that you have. Everyone's different. Everyone's an individual, and I think it's important that we recognize that in a way that is both open to expression and open-minded in the sense that we might not all have the same opinion, and it's okay to understand someone else's point of view. It's okay to understand, why someone else thinks the way that they think.
Exactly. So again, once again, let's go ahead and say thank you for joining us. I know these are a little bit long videos, but I really appreciate you sitting down and being with us. I hope you enjoy the game. If you have any opinions on different games that I can play, please reach out and let me know. I am up for new ideas of games all the time. I am willing to play any game from horror to, silly RTS games. Just let me know what I can play that'll entertain you. Once again, I'm Crystal.
And I'm Cassie.
And everyone have a great day.
Yep.